All right, championship weekend. Putting out a video just for the sake of putting one out. I mean, it's already game day at this point. Very few people are going to be able to see this, and they probably made their bets already. But here goes. We got the NFC Championship matchup today: Tampa Bay at Green Bay, and the AFC Championship matchup: the Buffalo Bills at Kansas City Chiefs. So in the first game here, it's at Green Bay. I hear it's supposed to be snowing. Cold weather game. Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady, both adept at, or not adept, but have plenty of experience. Let's just say. I mean, both are pretty good, but both have a lot of experience playing outdoors in the cold, either in Green Bay or in Foxborough. So that I don't think matters a ton necessarily to the quarterbacks. Might matter a little more to the rest of the teams. And here's where I'm at with it. So Green Bay, the great regular season record, but if you go through and look at their wins and losses, they only played like a handful of playoff caliber teams, decent opponents, and they didn't really do all that well against them. I've said it in other videos. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay, they were just an inconsistent team. When they were on, they looked like one of the best teams in football, and then like the next week, they're off or their O-line isn't playing well and they get a ton of penalties and then they just can't get out of their own way and they're terrible. So I think that's one of the ways this can go is if Tampa Bay forgets that this is a playoff game and they go home if they lose and they just like don't quite show up to play and can't get out of their own way and then end up losing to a very very consistent, pretty well constructed Green Bay team. But I think it's gonna go the other way. The Tampa Bay, they're the underdogs. I'm seeing them at plus 3.5. That's the side I want. Full disclosure, I'm a Vikings fan, wearing some Vikings shirt, a Viking shirt today. I'm not cheering for the Pack, but if I thought the Pack were going to win, I wouldn't lie about it. I think Tampa Bay, if you look at Green Bay, last year and this year, very kind of solid team, able to just beat up on bad teams. When they play like a good team, especially good one with a good defense and a good defensive line, they tend to get owned. Like when you look at some of their losses this year in the regular season, one of them was Week 6 to Tampa Bay, and that defensive line that Tampa Bay has just owned them. And then the offense had their way with the Packers defense. Another game that they lost this year was to the Colts, another team with a great defensive line. I'm not even sure if DeForest Buckner played in that game. And like that game ended up, I think, going to overtime. But it was like literally the Colts won that game handily and then just like kept getting in their own way in classic kind of Phil Rivers fashion. And then going back to last year in the playoffs, Green Bay has a pretty solid season, beats up on Matt LaFleur's first year in the league. They end up going to the playoffs, winning their division, and then they get to the playoffs, and old Kyle Shanahan and Robert Sala's defensive line monsters like Joey Bosa just absolutely train wrecked Green Bay. And I don't think today's necessarily going to be a train wreck, but if you look at Tampa Bay, they have an inconsistent offense, especially like kind of on that offensive line. But especially if you look back to last week, like they can run the ball if Arians will actually commit to it. And they got great wide receiver talent, and then you got Tom Brady. On the defensive side of the ball, you have an amazing defensive line. Those linebackers last week playing lights out, and they had that cornerback. I mean, Devin White last week. With some very game-changing plays. He's a great player. In their secondary, you got Winfield making plays as a rookie. You got their cornerbacks playing really solid football right now. There's like something Mundy who made some plays last week. I don't know. Their defense looked fired up last week, and they're going to get Vita Vea back to shore up that middle. And if you look at Green Bay's offensive line, like they played really well. A lot of people are talking about their offensive line coach being a stud, but they lost David Bakhtiari. They're not at full strength on that offensive line. They really haven't played that many teams that can challenge their offensive line. Well, this Bucs team, they're one that can do it. You look at Green Bay's defensive side of the ball. Well, and then on offense, before I move on from offense, so I think their offensive line is kind of patchwork, and they've been able to hide those blemishes, but I don't think for long. Their other offensive weapons, Aaron Jones, he's a good running back, but Tampa Bay is a great run-stopping defense. And then you got Devontae Adams, who is probably still going to get 100 yards no matter what you do. But that's all they have. You're asking it's Rodgers and Devontae Adams versus the world, and that works. I mean, they're unbelievable. They're an unbelievable combo, but I don't think that's quite enough for what Tampa Bay brings to the table. On the defensive side of the ball, Green Bay's defense last year were actually really good. It was the defense and Mike Pettine's defense, who Mike Pettin stayed on from the old Mike McCarthy era into the new Matt LaFleur era, because they had played so well on defense that final year. And then last year they were lights out. They had Zadarius Smith. They brought in another Smith, but their defensive line, their pass rush was nuts. They had a young secondary that was kind of questionable. And then this year, it seems they're like a middle of the road run defense. Their pass rush was one of the worst in the leagues, and their secondary is pretty solid because those young guys from last year, they grew up a little bit. They're pretty good players, but that's the kind of their strength, their defense. But their line is not good at bringing pressure, and I don't think that's a good formula when you're going up against Brady, and it kind of makes up for, I think, some of the question marks I have about that Buccaneers O-line. Unfortunately, I think the refs are going to matter a lot in this game, depending on how they decide to call some of that stuff. Hopefully these Lambeau refs give the Buccaneers as much grace as they tend to give Green Bay, and there isn't a whole lot of holding calls, because, man, I just can never forget that Thursday Night Football Bears-Bucks game where Tampa Bay they'd get the ball and then they'd go backwards because it was just holding call after false start after holding call. Just nuts. And then shout out to my boy Joe Haig, Brainerd boy from my hometown, Brainerd, Minnesota. He's going to be playing for the Bucks like he has been all season. So he got some playing time last week, so let's see him get in the game and make something happen. So that's what I got. I got Bucks plus the 3.5 points, and I feel pretty good about that one. The second game, I feel like this is a coin flip. Surprisingly, in the first game, the money is very 50-50 when you're looking at the spread. Going into the Buffalo-Kansas City game, it's actually 60% on Buffalo, and they're like +3 depending on where you look. Anywhere from like +4 to +2.5. It's just kind of been in that range. But let's just say like 3.5 here. Buffalo are 3-point underdogs. 61% of the money's came in on them. Kansas City, only 39% came in on them, and they're minus 3-point favorites. And usually Kansas City's minus 10-point favorites. And I don't know. I think this one's kind of a coin flip. I think maybe a lot of the money came in on Buffalo because of the questionable status of Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, that guy. Patrick Mahomes kind of tweaked his neck last week and kind of had like a weird concussion, and people weren't quite sure about that all week. Seems like he's good to go from everything I've seen. I don't know what to do with this one. So on one side of the ball, you got Buffalo, who is hot. Like, they're on an 8-game win streak right now, and they finished the season just absolutely on fire. Then they go into the playoffs, and they play the Colts and the Ravens. And one of my buddies is saying, well, the Bills haven't hit the over yet. Well, they also played the Colts, who I would say is, let's just say 1B best defense in the AFC. And then they played the Ravens, who I would say, is like a 1A best defense in the AFC. So they played some really stud defenses. And now they're going to Kansas City. And I don't know what to do about Kansas City's defense because, they haven't been that good. They've been, solid. But, last year, they were not a particularly good defense at all. And then they got to the playoffs and they played out of their minds. So that's still kind of hanging in the back of my head. So I'm not really sure what to do with Kansas City's defense. But I know that Buffalo Bills is the best offense they've played all season. And Kansas City has not blown out particularly many teams. If you look at their season, they were kind of coasting all regular season. They would let kind of bad teams score some points, and then Patrick Mahomes would be like, oh, it's time to play. And then they'd, do whatever they got to do to win. And they'd win some close games. So now it's the playoffs. So now is coasting mode off and that doesn't matter? Or will some of that kind of lackadaisical play carry over into the playoffs? I don't know. I think they're going to kind of want to play. I think when you look at the construction of these teams, you got Buffalo, it was pretty weak on defense. And then they have Josh Allen with a great passing attack. And then you have a pretty mediocre power run game, but Devin Singletary, like in space, is able to make some plays. And you kind of have something similar on the Kansas City side of the ball. Like I would actually say Kansas City's defense may be a little bit better. I don't know, probably worse. I mean, the cornerbacks for Buffalo, that White, Tre'Davious White, really solid. Um, but Kansas City side of the ball, you got question marks on the defense. Then on the offensive side of the ball, their offensive line has not been very good at all this year, especially in running the ball, running the football, short yardage, especially. They do not win those matchups. That's why they end up doing all those kind of weird little push passes, trying to get in the end zone. It's because they tried to run up the middle twice and then it didn't work. Um, so, and then obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, and I guess I don't think I don't think the concussion neck thing is going to matter a ton. And then he's got Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and able to make some of those other auxiliary pieces work. So I don't know. I guess I feel 50-50 about it. So that's what got me leaning Buffalo, just because if you can give me the points or the money line boost of the underdog, I'll take the underdog. But ultimately, like if I had to pick who I think is going to win, gun to my head, I would probably say Kansas City. So not a whole lot of confidence there. I'll bet on it just because it's playoff football. There's only 2 games today, but this would probably be an avoid. It'd be an avoid for me in the regular season. I wouldn't go too hard on it, but obviously that's a game you got to watch. Really excited to see both these games. But I'm predicting a Tampa Bay Kansas City Super Bowl. Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. I wouldn't mind seeing Buffalo make it on as long as Aaron Rodgers and the Pack get trounced today. I'll be a pretty happy man. If it's Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes in the State Farm bowl game, I'm not gonna be very happy with that. But that's probably most fans. But that's all I got. Hopefully that's somewhat helpful if you did get a chance to see this. Good luck on your bets today, and have fun watching football. And Elena has been on my lap for this whole thing, and she's been just a sleepy little princess. So, have a good one. Bye.